Welcome to Burn the Ship. This is the podcast where we connect entrepreneurs with professionals that can help you go all in on your business. We talk to people that have walked the walk, talked the talk, been through all the things that we experience as small business owners, and have come on the platform to share with us those skills and experiences that have helped them lead a successful business. So hopefully we can apply those things ourselves and run a more successful business personally. So thank you very much for coming on the show, Chris. It does mean a lot. Anybody that shares the time with me, shares the time with the audience. It means a lot to us, so thank you for that up front. I appreciate you being here. But why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do in your company?
So, as you know, my name's Chris. The company that I started is called Exec Advisors. Essentially focused on, well, it does what it says on the tin, right? So, advising executive leaders on their decision making. This can range from technology leaders, procurement leaders, CEOs, sales leaders, marketing leaders. So, essentially covering the whole C-suite, and obviously do this via the connections and leadership partners that we have, um, and we match like for like. So, for example, um, if we have somebody that's a founder in a startup, we look to match them with somebody that one understands their world, and two ideally fills in their gaps. Right? Sometimes you get some strange requests and strange matches. Right? Sometimes you get some people that are on the business side but are looking for a technology advisor, because they know business well enough, but it's the technology element and landscape that they need support on. Um, and I think, funnily enough, it's something I don't think we see enough. To be honest, we tend to see a lot of people look to be advised or supported in some areas where I think they're already quite strong. And I think it's about where a lot of value is taking a step into the realm of the things that you don't know but could benefit from understanding,
Sure.
such as different leaders understanding maybe their peers' department in a little bit more detail, or strategy, or the way they go about their day to day.
Sure. Well, a lot of that I think is execution related too, right? Is that as a business owner, you're always going to have ideas that are difficult to implement just because you're strapped for time and you're thinking in all of these different directions as well. So where do you see that biggest, what is that overall need kind of consensus for you? Where are people in their business journey when they decide, okay, maybe I need to add another piece to this engine to make my business run like a more well-oiled machine? Like, kind of describe that place that your clients are in where they lean on you guys for either, that consulting role or that executive placement.
I think it hugely varies, right? I think it hugely varies, because I mean, if you asked me when I started, could I have used help? I would have said, yeah, absolutely, straight away, right? But then you've got the element of budget, right? And as any small business, or even in some cases where one of the markets that we look to serve and do extremely well, is not for profit, right? With a big focus on that here in the UK, as well as the smaller businesses and larger businesses. But it seems to be, at the moment, as probably with everywhere else, technology advisory seems to be the fastest growing space. But it's it's hard to say. I wouldn't say that there's any one point. I think that there are several points. I think, and it depends on I guess what the return is for the owner or the leader in particular. How important
Sure.
is it for them to get this particular problem or challenge they're dealing with solved or sorted, or putting together a strategy? And I think it's about the making sure that they have the right level of engagement. And I think, to build on that, it kind of, to sort of answer one of the questions that you asked earlier about us in general. um, it, it is kind of why we have the model we have, which is flexible, right? So it's the cancel anytime service, whereas most of our competitors or organizations similar to us, what they tend to operate on is tying people into long-term contracts,
Sure.
huge bills, and then they're stuck in that. And for not-for-profits, for example, that's not great. For small businesses, that's not great, um, because things can change very
Yeah.
quickly, as we saw with things like COVID, for example, and put people in a really tough situation. I
Sure.
just feel like if you can afford it and flexibility is an option, then I would always say if the numbers line up and it makes sense for your business, I would always welcome insight and advice. I think that's the idea is for it to be a no-brainer, right? And that's how we look to
Sure.
position what it is that we do. It has to be so easy for somebody to come on board um, that you know they don't. There's no really losing element for them. The idea is that the client consistently wins by having the commercial terms that they need alongside the expertise and support. But I'm not sure if that answers your question. I know we slightly
No,
off on a
no,
tangent there, but
it kind of does because it's talking. I mean, my question was based on, I guess, as simple as I can make it is like, when does your ideal client decide, okay, I need this help and I'm going to seek that out? And that makes that what you're saying is that makes sense. Is making it a no brainer and making it where it can apply to different phases in the business kind of widens that um, proximity of which you're able to gain clients. And I think probably
yeah,
a better way for me to have asked that question or given you the ammo that you needed to answer it is that it's kind of based on the industry as well, right? Like their technology leaders are going to need different things. I have seen dynamic software companies with a very simple piece of technology go from 5 people with a that are all C-level board members, intro founders to a company to 130 employees in 4 months, right? Like I've seen that happen where they're literally hiring one person a day for a third of the year so that they can meet up with the quota of development and onboarding and customer success and bug fixes and updates, UI changes. I've seen all of that, so I'd imagine that you find people to solve these very diverse problems, which leads that to be a diverse answer. So no, I think you answered it correctly, and the overwhelming thing, or the way to make it most simple is that if you're one of those people that is kind of in the midst of change or at a sticking point, or you know that you need more resources or someone else to help you implement an idea that you have running around in your brain, that's kind of that catalyst for seeking out executive advice that you guys provide. What is something that you guys do well, particularly in your organization, that makes you guys a little bit different from other people that kind of offer this same service? Like, what's kind of been that superpower that keeps you guys growing since you guys have been, doing what you're doing?
I would say, interestingly enough, a lot of the great elements. It's there's no short answer to this, but I'll try and be as succinct as I can. So, if I had to put it in a nutshell, I would say getting it done.
Sure.
so,
No, because
um,
execution is the hardest part. Like even before that, like that, what you're saying makes sense to me because it's easy to be the business idea guy. Like everybody has ideas in business. It's, can you implement them and can you stick
so,
with them for a long time?
so this is the thing, right? And so when I say getting it done, what I mean is, so most organizations, when they work in this sort of capacity, what they tend to do is there's a requirements gathering phase, there's this phase, and they all have their different costs associated with it. Well, what we try and do is we package that all up into our standard service, right? Which is, as I said, can save time and flexible. So what we do is we understand as much as we can about the organization, the skills that they have in house, the projects they're running, the business outcomes they're driving, their strategies on driving them, all these different elements. And then whenever we provide any sort of advice, it comes through that filter.
Right.
Whereas what most organizations tend to do, and I don't look, that model works well, right? To have a cookie cutter approach. It clearly,
Right.
there's plenty of organizations quadruple the size of mine that clearly have done really well, right? But
I think people just need it.
yeah,
Like you just need a little bit of a process,
and I
just
think
a little bit of
exactly,
steps to feel like you're moving stuff forward. It's a human thing.
and I think that where we excel is going that little step further, and getting essentially the service has been designed to replicate some of the best outputs and outcomes that are generated by larger firms that aim to do similar things to us, but do not essentially keeping that level of quality without basically charging a huge uh, price
Sure.
tag with it or tying anyone in. So it's essentially the idea is to for the client to have their cake and eat it, right? That's the idea, because I, I I truly believe it's possible for everyone to sort of be happy, and for there to be a point where everybody can sort of get what it is that they need, um, without some of the terms, conditions, and difficulties working with third parties I see and have seen throughout my career. Um, and then it still exists today, right? So that's kind of what makes us unique is, you know, um, we're able to get a price point that's extremely reasonable. I don't think there is actually I haven't seen anyone that meets that or comes close to it currently, but without compromising on the quality of
Sure.
what's provided. Um, that's really where I say would excel, right? Focusing on the detail
Sure.
that the
And that
organizations
makes
need.
sense to me too, because a lot of the solutions in your space I feel like are wrapped into a lot of fluff, right? A lot of times there's a lot of, and it's okay for me to
Yeah.
hate on your industry. You know what I mean?
No. It's very true. It's very true. It's
It
very
is.
true.
There's a lot of fluff. There's a lot of technology. There's a lot of reading. There's a lot of hands off stuff that makes you feel like you're getting all of this value packaged up into this one thing. And I've seen it from sales training organizations, is really where I've seen it from more than anything. Is like, hey, here's all of these tools that if you use them and you implement them yourself, you'll get great things out of that. And really, I think that the one on one time, being able to use one another from a business perspective as a soundboard to whiteboard out ideas and find out what's actually going to be effective for us is the most valuable thing, right? So if you're finding a way to do the most valuable thing for your clients as often as possible, you're probably doing something right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What's been difficult for you guys? Like what's kind of been some of the obstacles that you run into from a, maybe it's a top of the funnel perspective, maybe it's finding people to place with people that have these sort of needs, but what's kind of the consensus on what makes your industry difficult for your organization or other organizations in similar capacities?
I think what makes this. I mean, we haven't had. I wouldn't say we have had any challenges in particular that have been glaring. I would say not right now, but there have been things that when we started out, for example, um, the challenge was, and to a degree, you know, probably still will be, right? Because we're always learning, but is understanding actually what the clients want. Because
Yeah.
when we started out, I had a history at a number of organizations, such as your Gartners, your Everest Groups, your Objectivity. Now, essentially, I worked with several software companies, but what I was fortunate enough to actually make a lot of good C-level connections across not just not-for-profit, but also small to medium-sized enterprises and large enterprises as well. So I reached out to a lot of my contacts, to understand, in the world of research advisory and consulting, what is it that makes it, and what is it that actually makes the service great, and what is it that makes it a no-brainer? What is it that you hate? What is
Yeah.
it that you wish wasn't a part of,
Right.
or part of the package, or you know the baggage with the service, so to speak? And what I did is, I pretty much listened and I designed it around that feedback, and pretty much um, threw anything they didn't like in the trash, as you guys say over there in America, but in the bin, we'd say over here.
Yeah.
Um, so I I put that together, right? So initially, that's where I think some of the challenges. I think a lot of people have a great ideas, great ways to present it, but they kind of drop. Sometimes people drop the ball when they're like, okay, they kind of make the decision for the client.
Right.
And you see it everywhere, right? It can be applied across many areas of business. It could be even when you're proposing a solution, right? Some people price them out before themselves out before they even know what the client has to say, for example.
Sure.
And I didn't want to have those conversations. I wanted it to be I wanted the conversations to be very value driven, right? Um, and again, that was another challenge, right? Because
Right.
one of the challenges we had early on was deciding whether or not we actually put our pricing up on the website. Because I discussed this with some of the leadership partners, and I thought it was a good idea, because I thought, well, if we're really looking to disrupt the industry and be different, um, shouldn't we do that? Because a lot of the feedback that we saw when we went out and did this information gathering piece was um, around pricing, right? There's this stigma that people,
Sure.
this, well, how much is this? How much is at risk with this challenge or this project or whatever, right? And then you receive the proposal, and it's been adjusted accordingly to the risk associated with your project, right? Which is
Sure.
kind of, I mean, I get it. It works for
Yeah.
some people, but it's the clients aren't stupid, right?
Yeah.
They
It's
know,
flawed
they know,
science.
yeah,
Yeah.
they know what they're doing. It's not their most of the time. It's not their first rodeo. They know this, right? And that's why I thought, well,
Sure.
and that's why you sometimes see that more challenges, and you really get into the meat of things later on, once the the pre-sales guy, the expert or technical expert comes in, because they're more eager to open up, right? And so I thought, well, I would rather be having those discussions up front, more about the issues they have, how we can help. We don't have to discuss the pricing or anything like that, or they don't have to hold anything back, because or worry about whether we're going to spike the price based on what they tell us or anything like that, because it's all there.
Yeah.
It's all there. So we can have a really frank, good discussion around what is actually important to them.
Sure.
What's the view of the solution in their head? Is it the best way to do it? What are they trying to? What's the ultimate goal they're trying to reach? All these kind of things. We can have those discussions, and it just lifts the sort of looming shadow off the conversation. Um, and I think those are, for me. I think were initially finding out the way in which we position that and pull that together
Sure.
were the challenges. And it's a battle you sort of have in your own mind, because you think, well, should I do it? Shouldn't I do it? And then I thought, my advice to anyone that wants to do something different in their sort of space is that if you've done the research, and the clients have given you almost a recipe to success, right?
Right.
You'd be a fool not to use it, wouldn't you? I mean,
Sure.
you know, yes, there's some risk associated, but that's where you do your calculations. You have a look at the information you have. You figure out, okay, I might not be able to get this. Maybe you can't get it exactly on point to where the client wants it in terms of the service or the way it looks, but at least you can get damn close, right? And then you position that and you put it out there. And again, I catch up regularly with the clients and say, look, if there's something that we don't do or you wish that we did, right, let me know, because if I can, and we will look at different ways to include that into the service, obviously providing it's scalable, because we've got to do this for a number of other clients, but that will be similar to them. But essentially, it's that's how we look to build the service. And I think that's where a lot of people might struggle initially in this kind of space, is like, well, how do we position ourselves? How do we
Sure.
how do we price ourselves? Because you're selling as an organization a service, right? Not necessarily a product. And that's sometimes where the lines can get a little bit blurry, I guess.
No, yeah, and I can relate to that from my organization's perspective as well, because what the client wants isn't always necessarily what they need.
Yes, I had a
I would
conversation
say
like that today.
it's very rarely that case, um, in the payments world, especially because a lot of people want the nicest technology. They want the new stuff. They want the shine. You approach this, and I'm not saying this is a fault of thing, but most entrepreneurs approach their business highly optimistically, and then they go through this kind of, um, informed pessimism, you know what I mean, where you've realized that, oh, this is more difficult than I thought, and maybe I need to do some things differently. So, like, depending on the phase of where you are in that emotional journey, will let you know of, what kind of decisions you're making based on the livelihood of your business at any given
Yeah.
point, right? And
I
it's
suppose
difficult.
you go through that. I mean, most will go through that every day, at least once a
Yeah,
week, right? It's oh my, like you wake up, oh, am I doing the right thing? Should I, By the end of the day, um, I don't think I think if I had a choice to go back and do I do that? Do I go and start this up or not? I'd safely say I'd do this every time, 100% of the time, because you, if you're like me, I'm really, really, for me, it's super important that the people that I'm working with are happy.
right.
And that's the people, and that means their leadership partners or any associates that we have, but also the client is super happy, right? And they kind of go hand in hand, right?
Absolutely.
If you're overworking the associate and they're not getting paid well, or they're not being looked after, then the client is going to suffer as well, right?
Sure.
Because that person isn't going to be at their best. And I think that happy associates are willing, and I'm not saying they should, but are willing to go the extra mile for clients sometimes, right? Because they're in that sort of place. And I think that ideally for me, that's the kind of environment I want to have, is a where everybody's winning, right? We don't doesn't need to be we don't need to be running an organization where somebody is losing, whether it's the client, the associate,
Right.
or anyone for that matter, right? It just doesn't. Our success will be in the volume, right? The way we grow by providing a great
A
service.
better service more often. Yeah.
Yeah, and the feedback we've got has been nothing but positive. I I I mean, one of the feedback we got actually from a housing association here in the UK was, oh, it sounds too good to be true. What's the catch? Um, so we had to just obviously schedule a reference call um, for that person to say, well, look, it does what it says on the tin, right? And I think, fortunately, over the years, I've, as I said, been able to meet the right people, and I've got some people that I worked with before at previous organisations that were my clients. Um, some of them now work with me as leadership partners, right?
Oh,
And
wow.
these are like incredibly smart people, right? Far smarter than I am,
Sure.
right? But it's I think that, and I guess that would be one of the things that I would definitely voice as well, is that just surround yourself with the right people,
Sure.
and don't forget lessons that you've learned, valuable lessons that you've learned in the past at other
Yeah.
organisations. I had a lot of great. I spent time with a lot of great leaders. Um, you know, one of them, Gartner, which probably when I worked there, if somebody checks my profile, they'll see that. But I worked there with my first leader there was Karolis Kardokis. Um, it's from Lithuania, and he actually really he really helped me become self-aware. And I think a lot of the lessons just from seeing him as a leader has helped me in a number of different ways, right? Especially having accountability for all kinds of situations, right? Things that aren't
Sure.
even things that aren't even
Yeah.
your fault. Taking
Right.
accountability for what could I have done to make it different. I had working with people such as Sean Robertson. I think he's in Texas. He was the one of the ex. He was the ex chief product officer of SAP. He's now the currently I think the chief commercial officer of Everest Group.
Oh, wow.
So I learned huge amounts of information from Sean. Um, I was just, Sean always used to say to me, actually, I want to be able to support you and give you the support that I wish I had, right?
Right.
But just having to be able to have worked with those people and just having those sort of people, great people around, right? And I've got, for example, working with the likes of Neville Cannon, who's one of our leadership partners, Kamesh Patel, so people that are from ex-C-level roles, your ex-CIO of Notting Hill Genesis, or the ex-CIO from Shore Trust, Ian Catlin, the transformation officer, Deborah. These people are, like I said, I reached one point where I was like, hey, I'm giving this. Everybody is using these guys for their knowledge, and I'm actually not asking enough questions myself.
Right. Right.
I've got surrounded by. I'm sitting in a library of information and not using it right, and then sitting there racking my brain during the day, thinking, how do I do this? And I'm just surrounded by these
All these people that can tell you the
all
roadmap.
these people that can tell me how to do it right. Exactly. So I think that's really, really important thing. It's just to surround yourself with those individuals,
Absolutely.
and just keep
Well,
your ears to the ground.
remind the audience one more time the name of your business and how they can get in contact with you if they're interested in sending you a referral, becoming a client of yours, asking a question, whatever that looks like.
So the name is obviously the Exec Advisors. So they can find us. They can find us on LinkedIn. They can find us on our website, which is www.theexecadvisors.com. There's a contact page. They can click on that and just that'll ping us an email. Um, I think those are mainly the two methods. If you want to, I would suggest probably website, but phone numbers up there as well. And I think at the very least, if they just even want to have a little, browse around or have a look at what it is that we do, or have a introductory conversation, 9 times out of 10, we're able to support that. And when I say introductory conversation, I mean speaking with one of the leadership partners and getting a flavor for what it is that we do and how we do it, right? Or running some kind of trials. But like I said, most of the time, it's not even hugely necessary because it's flexible service. So
Sure.
the service, you can treat the service as a trial in itself if you want to, right?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I appreciate the value. I mean, I think that you guys are in a good spot with positioning the value that you bring your clients is the most important thing to where you are as an organization. If there's anything that I can do for you guys, if there's anything that I can do for you in the audience, please let us know. Um, but I appreciate the words that you've shared. I think that you take a very logical look at connecting people with other people that can help them solve problems. And I think that's the overwhelming thing that I want people to leave with is that there are resources out there for you to find people that fit your team and fit your mission and fit your vision and fit the attitude and culture of your company that people like Chris can help you find. So please reach out to the exec advisors. Thank you again for your time, Chris. We'll put this out to the world, and like I said, we're more than happy to share any of this content with you. But I'm excited to have this relationship, and I look forward to talking to you more and connecting you with some people from the world of Burn the Ship.
Brilliant, brilliant. We're sure to come up and give you guys an update soon.
Cool. Yeah, absolutely. That would mean a lot. All right. I appreciate it. See you guys. Burn the ship.
See you.